5 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Thursday morning. You know, miracles take a form in many different ways, and I'm not necessarily focusing right now on hard to explain miracles, but rather the easy to explain miracles, the miracles that are explained simply because medical professionals have taken their time to understand how these bodies we live in work and how to fix them when they go wrong. And when we take it for granted, as we do kind of, to be honest with you, in this country, we take our medical providers kind of for granted. We think, oh gosh, I got something wrong, let me go to the doctor and have it fixed. But that's not true everywhere in the world. And we want to talk to Doug Jackson right now. He's on the phone, and he is the president of an organization that delivers these miracles, I think. That's what I would call them. The organization is called Charity Vision International. It's a nonprofit organization that provides doctors in third world countries the skills and the equipment that they need to conquer curable blindness. I was reading some of the stories about this, and at first, I didn't understand what it meant by curable blindness, but you'll see in a second, or you'll hear in a second. It was originally founded by Doug Jackson's physician father, William Jackson, so there's a family part of this story as well. October is World Blindness Awareness Month, so it is appropriate to talk about this. Doug Jackson, you guys are amazing. Thank you for being on the air with us today.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
Where are you right now?
I'm in Provo, Utah, at the base of the Wasatch Mountains. So we're starting to turn into winter here.
Oh, already, really? See, we're in Florida, so we're kind of the only way we hear about winter is on the news.
Yeah.
I'm headed your way. Middle of November to hopefully get some of your Florida sun. So.
Oh,
nice.
Excellent. We'd love to have you in the studio if you feel like being on the air. Unless you're taking a vacation, you say, "Nah, I'm taking the time off."
It's vacation.
The stories that I read about, like, little children, for example, that were virtually blind, or almost blind is maybe a better word, and then with one surgical procedure, you guys were able to give her vision back. It's just amazing. And what was it like? I mean, you see these, I'm guessing, more often than I would ever know. So it must be huge for you.
It is. You know, we started out 30 years ago with my father when he was living in the Philippines for a while, and he started to put these teams of doctors and local hospitals together to address some of these issues in their own communities. And we started off with doing just anything that was one surgery that you could fix it. Something predictable, something that wasn't going to break the bank, something you could, so it was a cleft lip, a crossed eye, a cataract, maybe a burn where their arm is maybe melted to their body, or, they wanted to get that mobility back. And,
wow.
And then over the years, we started to just see more and more eyes, and eyes really dwarf everything. You add everything else up, and you don't, get to the level of, there's a lot of people out there that are needlessly blind. And at first you think, well, that's not as exciting as, this grotesque face that you're able to put back together and make him look cute again. But, the more I'm around it, the more I think, I don't know if there's anything more dramatic than giving someone their sight back.
Wow.
It is dramatic. Yeah. It is amazing. And you see a mother who hasn't seen her kids maybe ever for the first time be able to see her kids and what they look like.
Really?
Or a child that hasn't. I was in Pakistan not too long ago. We have some wonderful doctors up in the northern rural areas of Pakistan. Great people. They love America. These guys that we're dealing with, they're just so grateful. But I think, and maybe the story you just, because I think we threw it out there, but I met this little girl. It was 13, 11. I should have the fact. 11 or 13, something like that. And her whole life, her parents had passed away. She lived with her uncle, but they had gone from hospital to hospital to government institution, just begging for someone to do an operation and help her see again. She had congenital cataracts, and I was there when she had her operation, and for the first time in her young life, she could actually open her eyes and see.
Wow, that is amazing.
It is emotional. Emotional.
So, and I think the story I was reading was even younger than that child. But cataracts were in the other story as well. Do we have cataracts happening to young people in our country or not? And if not, how come young people have cataracts in third world countries?
Well, I think they happen. Cataracts here are just. We have them all over. There's a certain percentage of people that are born with congenital cataracts. Most of us develop them through the years, it's the sunlight, it's maybe our diet, it's a lot of those kinds of things, some trauma to the eye that will start to form cataracts. But in the United States, when we see a cataract, for the most part, in a grown person, it's where your eyes get kind of milky and you start to lose light, lose a little bit of color. Overseas, the people we're working on and we're helping, their cataracts are so mature. It's literally like a hard stone in their eye. You take it out and you can drop it on the ground and hear it hit the ground.
Really?
It's way mature, and it blocks all light, all everything, so their lives are totally black. But with the kids, there are a certain percentage of kids that are born with cataracts. It's just kind of something just didn't come together correctly in the eyes, and they had those proteins. What happens is the proteins inside the lens kind of start. There's a malfunction there, and they start to float around and congeal to each other and block the light.
Help me understand what the culture is like regarding specifically what you do. And is the word out there that there are doctors who can help them, or are they even surprised that you're even there?
Overseas? Oh, there's many cases of people that are that are even out there are surprised. The word gets around in the third world through a medical, maybe the local community health worker, or through a church or something like that. There are many people we find that will come in, and they've been blind for a long time, and they finally just heard about us. So I guess it's spreading the word around. When we go into an area and we want to announce that we're there, usually in the small rural communities, usually we do the thing where we get the car that drives around the neighborhood with the big speaker on the top of the roof saying, hey, please bring out your blind. Anybody that has sight problems, come to the community square.
Really?
Saturday at noon, and then they kind of just come out. The folks that can't see, seems like for the most part, they just kind of get pushed back into the back, cupboards of the house and in the darkness, and they don't go to school. The little kids don't go to school, of course, because they can't function there.
Right.
They kind of get lost about it. And you'll be surprised how often you go into neighborhoods. We have one program where we actually go door to door in India, and door to door, knocking on doors saying, is there anybody here that has vision issues? And that's how we find them, because lots of times even in their own communities they don't know they exist.
Oh, help us understand that. If you were going door to door in Ocala, the town you're talking to, we would be skeptical. We'd say, what are you trying to sell me? I mean,
we call the police.
Yeah. How do you do that? I mean, how does that happen?
Well, I think the culture is different. I think people are more open to their neighbors coming around, and that's happened to be a great program, because what we do there is when we cure somebody gets their sight back, we ask them, we said, we'd like you to now go around your neighborhood and see if you can find us another 5 people that might need some surgery. And so that's kind of their payback, as they go door to door and asking to see who else they can find in their community that might need. So they're kind of paying it forward.
How do you survive?
That's how we do it.
How do you survive?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't sound like they're paying, or am I wrong about this?
It depends. When we first started doing this, we thought, everything has to be free. For sure, it's charity. You don't charge anybody anything.
Right.
But we realized after a few years that it's actually good for if they can pay. Sometimes they bring in a bag of rice, chicken. If they can pay $5, if they can pay something, we feel it's actually better for them. They feel like they're participating, and what we usually tell them actually is, your surgery has been sponsored by somebody else, but would you like to make a contribution for the next surgery for someone else?
Mm-hmm.
And it just gives them their little bit of their ego, and they feel like, hey, I'm helping out as well.
Wow, that's smart.
Also, we find out, quite frankly, that if they have a little bit into it, they're a better patient. They seem to follow the doctor's orders, or wear the glasses, or take care of them, or those kinds of things a little more if they've paid $1 or $2. But generally, or across the board, no one gets turned away. If they can't afford $1, we don't turn anybody away. But if they can pay something, we generally ask them to pay something. Many times it's for the next patient.
And one of the most amazing things about your organization, too, is that you just don't depend on the doctors from here in the United States. You bring over equipment and things like that, and you train doctors over there, and then they stay there so they can continue the work.
Yeah, I think that's really the critical component of everything we do. We realized many years ago, when I grew up, I was born in Algeria. My dad got the bug to go and do charity work in third world countries right after he got out of medical school. And so we would go as a family, and we'd have great experiences. I loved whenever we go overseas and do some charity work and wherever it was. But he, as the doctor, I think he was starting to realize, this isn't quite the right way to do it, because I don't even understand what these people are saying half the time. I don't have the equipment that I'm used to. I haven't seen these issues. And I'm leaving, next Wednesday. I'm on a plane. I'm out of here. So he realized years ago that really wasn't the best way. And our philosophy as a charity is the only way we're going to make a difference is if the locals own it. The locals are involved, and it's their thing. And because they're there every day of the week, like you said, and they're there for follow-up. They know the culture. So we began to go to the locals and say, hey, there's a problem in your community. Can we help you to address it? What can we do to help you? And most of them were thrilled to say, I'd love to help my community, but I can't afford that lens, or that suture costs $6, and who's going to pay for the suture? I can't afford to do that, or I don't have a place to operate. The hospital charges me $50 just to walk in the door. Then who's going to pay that if I'm doing it for free? So we started just making deals with hospitals and providing the equipment. I can get a piece of donated equipment here from the United States that's maybe 10 or 15 years old. If I bring it to Uganda, boy, the hospital there looks at it and says, "Wow, this is manna from heaven. This is
really wonderful." Oh, wow!
I can say, here, why don't you take this operating room microscope or this table, and in exchange, you use it. By the way, it's now yours. You can use it in your hospital for everybody, but because we're letting you use it, when this doctor shows up on Friday afternoon, we don't want you to charge him anything. He's going to come in and he's just used some free cases. And that's kind of how we do it. We kind of horse trade with some equipment, and we get the hospitals on board, and they say, okay, if you'll give us that stuff, we won't charge you. And the doctor, we do the same thing sometimes with the doctors. We say, hey, in your practice,
wow,
you need
that is amazing.
Or you need a... So then we just... And we make it so we facilitate them, and in the end, we have a group of doctors in a community that before had no capacity to help. Now they have everything they need. Now they have the ability to make a living, and now they are a force in that community to take care of the poor. That's really the end goal, is to get doctors all over the world that can actually afford and have the ability to help their own.
Whenever we hear about any organization doing good things for other people, I mean, obviously it's always impressive when we hear the details that you've given us so far, that it's not only you're doing great things, but you're doing it smart, you're doing it in a way that can multiply itself even in your absence. It is really something we want to support, and not only that, but you're inspiring us to do more with our lives. Doug, can I ask you to hang on just for a bit? We've got to take a little break and catch up on the weather and a few commercials, and we'll be right back. The organization is Charity Vision. If you want to get a head start on this, there's a website. Correct me if I'm wrong, Doug. Is it charityvision.net?
That's right.
Charityvision.net. Okay, we'll take a little break and we will be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For today, partly sunny skies, breezy and warm with a shower in spots. The high 82 to 86. Partly cloudy tonight. There may be a shower along the coast. Low 63 in a few inland spots, but closer to 73 at the coast. Tomorrow, times of sun and clouds and breezy with a stray shower along the coast, high 82 to 86. For Saturday, sunshine, some clouds and a passing shower with a gusty wind, high 82 to 86. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm Joe Lundberg.
If you're anything like I was, the thought of getting older was the last thing on your mind. But here we are. For me, it started slowly. The lack of energy, never being in the mood, and when I was, I could never perform at my best. I tried the pills and other treatments with minimal results, and all but given up on my sex life. Then, I found the doctors at New Male Medical Center. Wow, they made a new male out of me. Feel like I'm 25 again. I have renewed vigor, so much more energy, and no longer worry about my performance. New Male treated me like my situation was one of a kind, with a custom treatment plan that really works. I feel great. They can create one for you too. It does not matter if you suffer from low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, or just want to last longer. New Male will help you.
Call New Male Medical Center today at 352-404-4779. 352-404-4779. That's 352-404-4779. It will change your life. 352-404-4779.
You've got a garden and we've got a show for you called You've Got a Garden with your host, Master Gardener Carol Ann Baldwin. Carol Ann answers your questions about your flowers, your veggies, your grass, your trees, even questions about your bugs. And she's only on WOCA, so don't miss Carol Ann Baldwin and You've Got a Garden each Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on WOCA The Source.
All right, 9 minutes left in the hour. 9 minutes to speak a little bit more to Doug Jackson. Doug is on the phone. He is the president of Charity Vision International, and they are helping people in third world countries cure the curable blindness cases. Some of them are children, and it's an amazing story so far. October is World Blindness Awareness Month, and the website that we learned about so far from Doug is charityvision.net. You know, the one thing I would be afraid of, and I'm sure you have an answer to this question, and maybe it's just my lack of real understanding of what these places are like, but how do you get doctors? I mean, is there a doctor already living there, but they just don't have do you have to train somebody? I mean, you don't want to take somebody off the street who's been, riding a bicycle and farming, and all of a sudden make him an eye surgeon.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a great question. And that's actually, I would say, one of the easiest things that we do. It's difficult to get stuff into the countries and get through customs, and it's difficult to do a lot of those kinds of things. But finding a doctor in a country that will partner with us is one of the easiest things. Medicine is dramatically different overseas when you enter an environment where there's very few paying patients, because the economy is not what it is here. There's no insurance companies to deal with. So these doctors, number one, if they have established a practice, they usually work for just a couple hours in the morning. That's all they have. They have 4 or 5 patients that may show up that pay. They show up, and the rest of the day they're free. And so sometimes they'll go and volunteer at maybe the government center, the government Social Security, whole hospital they have there. But those hospitals they have nothing. Those hospitals, there's usually no equipment. It's really just you're seeing patients.
Well, where are the doctors trained? Are they? And I mean, like before you even get there, where did the doctors learn their medical skills?
Okay. Well, they're all trained. They have pretty good training programs really throughout the world. In Africa, for example, Nairobi, Kenya, they seem to train doctors for the entire continent. But a lot of the doctors we come across have actually been trained in Europe, so they get out there. Some of these, we're not talking huge numbers, of course. It's a fraction of what it is here, but there are doctors there that have been trained. The problem is when they get done with the training and they say, "Okay, now I've been trained in Nairobi. I'm going to go back to Uganda and do my thing." They get there and there's no way for them to really establish a practice because there's no system where they can go and take out a loan and buy some equipment or anything. So it's they usually wherever they go, they end up putting out a shingle, and many of them don't survive. They can't make a living, and so they end up migrating to Florida, and they become a nurse. They start driving a taxi. It's too bad. There's definitely a brain drain. So we can find the doctors, and we can usually find plenty of doctors that are underutilized and they aren't busy enough. And so when we go to them and say, "Hey, you know what? To really make a living here, you need these 2 pieces of equipment in your office. And I know you can't afford them. We're going to make you a deal. We'll give you those pieces of equipment, but in exchange, we're going to fill up your afternoon because there's nothing going on right now. Let's fill it up with patients in your community that can't pay anything, and and that'll be your payback to us." So that's kind of how it works. But believe me, there are doctors out there, and they're fairly well trained. And if they're not. Then that's the one time we will bring American doctors over and say, "Okay, this guy needs a little bit of a touch up on this practice, or using this equipment. He's never seen this piece of equipment. Why don't you stay with him for a week and help him figure it out?" And that's the role that the foreigners play, is maybe give him a step up in their skill level. But once they understand it, we try to stay out of their way and we let them do their thing because they really are better dealing with their own people than we are.
Have you had to go to war-torn parts of the world where there was fighting going on to try to help the people?
Well, we seem to be in a lot of these strange places. I mentioned we were in Pakistan. We were in Syria for quite a while. We've been in Egypt for a long time. I was there. I actually flew out the day the coup happened. I was lucky. I didn't really. So, and people have asked us, why do you go there? Why do you want to go to those countries? Why are you in Zimbabwe where the government's killing people, freely? And I say, for some reason we seem to end up in all these strange places. But really it's because that's where nobody is. I mean, who else is there? This is where the doctors are begging for us. We only go somewhere if they come to us, and they usually we
do you know? And you're kind of making a point that I've felt always is that the governments of the world that are giving the countries that they govern a bad name don't represent the people who live there. I mean, quite often. I mean, you can walk into the Iran, which we demonize Iran right now, but we really should be demonizing their government because some of the people who live there are the sweetest people on the planet.
Exactly.
It is crazy that we are. I don't know why in this day and age when we know this, and we know this because look in your own neighborhood. You don't necessarily reflect what this government is about. And that's true. And Facebook and all those little social media conversations people have in the countries that have those things, the kids, they're talking to each other and saying, hey, you're just like me. How come we hate you? I don't know. I don't know why we hate you.
No, I totally agree. The people are wonderful. I was this recent trip to Pakistan. I was staying in someone's house because I was out in this rural area, and they'd given me a little side part of his house. And I was in there just getting ready for the day, and I came out of the bathroom, and my room was full of a whole bunch of little tiny kids. And they just come in, and I what do you? And they were all just there because they wanted to see an American, and they wanted to touch my my hairy arms that aren't normal for them, and they loved the American. They loved, and the fact that I was there helping them out, and they they hate the Taliban. But you're right. But the government, we look at the country sometimes. You look at the corruption at the top, and the people that are living in that environment are wonderful people, and everybody looks to America as their dream. They all want to come to America. They all want to live the American dream. They may not like Obama or George Bush or whoever's in power because of some propaganda that their government's throwing out at them.
Right, right.
They love us. And
they're subjected to the same same influences that we are. Yeah, that's what we need. That's where we're blind. It's another form of blindness. That's how we're blind. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, we don't talk about it a lot, but part of what I love too, that what's happened when we go over there is we put on a really good face for America. It's nice for them to see that we come in and say, first of all, we don't say, hey, move aside. We need to help you out. Get out of my way.
Right.
You guys know what you're doing. You just need just a little bit of help. Can I give you this little piece of help, and we'll just be your assistant. We'll be in the background watching you take off.
Well, thank goodness for people like you, Doug, and your dad. I mean, it's so refreshing to hear what you're saying, and I love what you're doing. You see inspiration in so many different ways.
Well, I mean, to one thing, and then it's taking off. We grow not because we have this need to be bigger or grow, but because we constantly get other doctors calling us and contacting us and say, hey, please come to our country. We just went into Kyrgyzstan. We need somebody, we need help, and we don't know how to do this. And a lot of countries don't know how to do charity. And then another one of the upshots that we didn't anticipate was the volumes are high, but when you do it this way, our costs are relatively nothing. I mean, it's $25 is what it ends up costing us if you spread everything out, our overhead and everything, all. Because when you have the doctors and the hospitals and everybody out there doing it for free, it doesn't cost hardly anything. And then you really have to sit back and think, gee, for the price of a meal, I can save.
I know. I love that part too. I want to let you know that I want to support you, and I'm sure that our listeners are feeling the same thing. I have the website charityvision.net. We've got about 20 seconds to wrap this up. Any other information we should give the listeners? Any other websites?
No, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to share this. Blindness awareness, it affects hundreds of millions of people in the world can't see appropriately. We can help them, and we can all make a difference for almost nothing.
Thank you.
We should be doing it.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you. Doug Jackson, charityvision.net. This is WOCA Ocala. We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. A senior defense official confirms to Fox News that a special ops raid has